That's what I mean. Like, yeah. So, you came into Irish Whip for your first tour in 2004. And then when you came in for that tour, you were Dublin, the Midlands, down the south coast. We did Waterford, Laois. We did Westmeath, Dublin, County Down. I think we did Antrim as well. So your first opponent, your main opponent in that tour was Sheamus,
Yeah.
as he's known now. At the time, he wanted to go by a name called Goldove, if you remember that.
Yeah.
So Goldove is an Irish word, or Irish name, I should say. But it sounded very like Goldberg, and it didn't click. And you remember he had like MMA gloves, and it just wasn't a very good.
The Sheamus gimmick, when people were chanting SOS.
That was at the following tour. Then it was completely changed. But on that tour, when he came in first, obviously you were big. Sheamus was a big lad, but everybody else, like a lot of places in the Indies, were very thin.
Yeah.
Not very muscular, very small frame. So it was quite. The only guy who could really work with Sheamus are some of the international guys that we had over at the time.
Yeah.
Now, I know on the tour there was people like Johnny Storm from England on that as well, but they're quite small and completely different style to you. So it fit well for you to work with Sheamus.
It only makes sense, totally.
Yeah. So what was your first impressions coming into Irish Whip and you see all these small guys where you...
Well, you know, when I first, there was a guy in Canada, in my area, that there was a big deal made that he was over here wrestling, and at the time, I was doing those tryouts, and I was all about exposure. I wanted exposure because my long-term goal was to be in the WWE. That was my goal, right? So I didn't care about. My concern was not about making money in the short term. My concern was about getting matches and getting exposure. That's when I reached out to you. And I said, hey, man, I want to come over. If this guy can do it, I know I can, right? Came over here with you guys and met Steve and Sheamus. And it was my understanding anyway. I already knew ahead of time that I was going to be with him a lot and I was going to be working with him. Because I think the conversation between you and me was, he's my guy over here. He's the guy. And I want you to work with him, right? Much like my partner Rage worked with me. I remember even before we weren't that together, he came to me after one of my matches and he said, whoa, he said, that was terrible. I was like, whoa, like, he said, yeah, he said, why are you selling and bumping for this guy? You're overselling, you're over bumping. He should not be able to do any of that to you because I had like 70 pounds on this guy. It clicked in my head, right? It doesn't make sense. And then when I came over and I saw Sheamus, I pulled him aside and had the same conversation. Listen, buddy, none of these guys should even be picking you up off the ground, right? It has to be worked. The match has to be worked a different way if you're going to be with those guys. With me and you, different story, right? Because people are going to sit back and say, okay, these are two brutes. Let's see what these monsters are going to do to each other, right? It's a different style of match, and I believe, and again, it's just my opinion, you have to approach it differently when you got guys that are that big and that much bigger than everybody else. Because there wasn't anybody else in the dressing room even close to Sheamus.
No.
Right?
No.
So, and that's neither here nor there because people can always work on that. Like I started training when I was 12 or 13. That's when I started lifting weights, and I've been doing it ever since. So if I'm not what I am right now, I've been doing something wrong for a very long period of time. So, and Sheamus, you know, like, gee whiz, the things that he was doing, how far he would bike, like to come to and from and then work 2 jobs and still do what he was doing, I appreciated it a lot and I respected it. And I think I worked well, and I think we worked well together in the ring. As there was especially on the first tour, like we actually bonded because I stayed with him, and it was just really good.
The tours in the beginning, see, originally when I started Irish Whip, there was no Irish wrestlers, there was no Irish training school or anything like that. So I used a lot of international guys from Europe, America, Canada. At the stage you came in is when it was trying to bring in less international guys, but the guys I brought in was to train in the ring the Irish guys.
I remember walking into the training facility you had, and so the ring, to me, it was, I was like, oh my God, this is like when Apollo brought Rocky back to his gym to bring him back to the roots to get the Eye of the Tiger back. I remember walking in this, and I was just like, it was like dusty. There was crap all over the place. There was like broken stuff. But then there was this ring with an actual canvas and actual ropes set up in the middle, and boys were going at it. I loved it. For me personally, that would have been better if you had some fancy facility with crash pads and lights and mirrors and all that stuff around, right? To me, that was gritty. That was like getting down to it, and we did. Like I was no, I guess compared to those guys, I was a vet, but I was still only probably, top of the bottom third maybe, or when it comes to that, right? There was many more guys that had much more time in me and way more matches than me. So I was able to do whatever I could do for those guys. And my big thing was, I liked it snug. Like, if you could not take a forearm shot from me, or a shoulder tackle from me, or some kind of bump from me, you shouldn't be in the ring with me, right? Because I want to make it look as realistic as it can be. Like, when I come in with a clothesline, I'm hitting you with that clothesline. I never once hurt anybody, right? Maybe except for Ratchild, if you ask him, but that's a whole other story. But I never hit anybody in the face. I never busted any noses or whatever like that. So I was very snug, and some people might call that stiff or whatever, right? But I never ever hurt anybody, and I tried to make it look as good. And then I also, with my background, I did karate and I did shoot fighting. So I also tried to bring in a little bit of realistic stuff, right? So real wrestling takedowns and some real maneuvers, right? That it's like, oh, where did that come from, right? And it's just not that everybody has to do that or has to be a thing, but it's just like another tool for the toolbox that makes you a little bit more complete of a wrestler.
I can remember in 2004 when you came in, all right, and you worked with some of the Irish guys. Initially, they were, I wouldn't say afraid, but they didn't particularly like working it because they were just so used to each other.
Yeah.
And you'd be at to make it look real, make it look snug, look tight, and they'd be all giving out. And then you come in and bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
And up and running around the place. And
it's kind of my way, though. That's what I do, right?
And Sheamus, in fairness to you, when you were at Sheamus, he took all that.
Oh, yeah,
night
he did.
after night, like,
yeah.
You know? Whereas there's other guys, I don't want to work Trev, but you wouldn't have them working. I wouldn't have them working unless it was a tag. so like I said, I'd put you in a 6-man or a tag for lads to get experience of working with an international.
And that's a great way to do it too, right? You know, have to drop them in the deep end of the pool, right? You know,
but you came back in 2005. That's when I had the tournament for this belt, the international heavyweight championship. So the whole point of international title was for it to be defended internationally and against international talent coming in. I didn't want to call it a world champion because I think if anyone calls their belt, that's not a legitimate world level promotion. It just cheapens it. Like, so obviously, if a belt's not gone around the world exposed like that, you can't call it a world title. Like, so you came in and you were on that tournament. It was an 8-man tournament. Irish guys, there was Americans, English, and Canadian, including yourself.
Yeah.
And you wrestled Sheamus in the tournament. I'll put up some pictures of that now as well.
Yeah.
And whatnot. But you ultimately lost to Sheamus, who went on to win this belt then in the finals. So have you any memories of that particular championship tournament?
I remember our match being pretty tight and being two big guys going at each other and leaving it all out there. And we did. We left it all out there. Like, I have a picture of me and Sheamus, and we're shaking hands in the ring afterwards, and it was a well worked and well thought out match, and I enjoyed being able to do that for him and put him over like that.
So at that stage, Sheamus was Sheamus. Sheamus was Shaughnessy. So the Goldov gimmick was gone, and now he was like the Irish Hulk Hogan as such, like, you know. So did you see the big difference in him from the first tour to the second tour?
Oh yeah, he matured. He got a lot more matches in, and he was. I found him to be a lot more confident, right? Confident in his abilities and his ability to wear a title and carry a promotion.
And he was. on that particular tour, I think it was a tour after you were tag team partners a lot.
Yeah, we are at. There's one regret I have about that match. One regret, because we were gonna wrestle then later. So we had a great tag team match, and I really enjoyed it. And we won. We went over. The one regret I have about that is that I didn't Pearl Harbor him right after the match, as I should have. I should have clotheslined him. I should have beat him down, and that would have even give us more heat for our next title match.
True. And the match you were talking about was taped. It was shown on Whiplash TV and DVDs. But a lot of the stuff that you had wasn't recorded.
Yeah.
When you were going around as a tag team, so the only one that was only one tag match recorded. But yeah, it was quite interesting. You were so in Irish Whip, there's a lot of double duty goes on. So you have your singles match, and the end of the night it could be a 6-man or a tag.
Yeah.
So that's how you ended up in tags a lot after singles, and also there's double shots a lot of the time. So the championship day was in Kildare. That was a Saturday, I think, and then there was an evening show. You had to travel to Dublin after that. So you'd only wrestle them in the tournament, and then that evening is the match you're talking about, the tag match. But I mean, that's what I always loved about wrestling, was the double shots, the travelling around. Because even when you came here, like, you wrestled all over Ireland. You've wrestled, not in every county now, but you've wrestled, I'd say, about 10, 12 counties in Ireland.
Yeah, I had a great time. It was amazing, and I really appreciate that I had an opportunity from you to come over and do that, right? Like, that was so cool, and it helped for my exposure, especially back home in my home province of Newfoundland.
I remember, like, when you came here for your first tour, so two guys, you predominantly wrestled Sheamus, and there's another chap here in Irish Whip at the time called Joe Cabray. So Joe Cabray's gone on now to set up OTT. So Joe and Sheamus both got signed to the WWE. Joe, I think he was there for 6 months in development, so that didn't work out for himself. He took the chance on that, and I know Sheamus, obviously, it worked out for him. So how's that look? I mean, you're working on the shows in Ireland where these lads are very green at the time, needing to learn. You're teaching them, and they go on and get signed ahead of you. Now, I understand John Laurinaitis came in, and wrestling is very all politics.
Yep.
And I'm sure he came in, I can't speak for John Laurinaitis, but I'm sure he came in and said, right, I don't want anything to do, I don't want anyone who was their talent, Tommy Dreamer, Tom Pritchard, I'm going to do everything fresh myself and find these guys. Because I'm sure if you got signed, I assume that you would have been technically a Tom Pritchard guy, not one of Johnny's guys that he found. So yeah, so how's that like? I mean, that you're here trying a couple of guys in Ireland in the ring, they want to get signed because of politics, and you didn't.
I had a couple of conversations with Sheamus. Sheamus actually mentioned me in an interview about receiving training from me, working for me. Sheamus, it was a thanks, Vid Vain. And if I had a little micro part of him getting to where he is, that makes me happy. Every time I see him in the ring, like, I know that guy, I've drank with that guy, I slept in that guy's house, I trained him. And so a little part of me is already in there with him. And even, like, that second tour that I came over, I had a NWA title, NWA Canadian Heavyweight Champion. And I asked if I could bring that over here. And that was a big deal, actually, for me to bring that out of the country. But they trusted me. And I said, you got no worries. So I brought it over. And then I actually trained with that other group, the NWA group, when I was here too. And that's where Becky was.
Finn Balor was there as well.
Yep.
Balor and Becky.
Yep. So I remember those guys, and I remember being in the ring with them. And we went there to give our style, or whatever I had, to show them and work with them. Right, and I know I got pictures of them with me in the ring after. I remember sitting with Becky on a sub, going back and just talking about wrestling. Right, so like, I had a little part, and I have no regrets. I got no qualms. My life is great. I really enjoy my life right now. I'm loving life. bouncing back from some, the mental health issue that I have, and it's ongoing. You just don't get rid of that. It's a constant work. It's something that you always got to be working on, right? I got a great girl in my life, my dogs, my house. I'm fully retired. I'm traveling around the world, man. Thank you. I'm happy.
That's your show, actually, when you were the NWA champion. So that was on your first tour when you came in, wasn't it?
Was it the first or second? Jeez, I can't remember a lot anymore.
Tour it was.
Yeah.
You were the NWA champion when you came in. So Finn Balor had set up his own promotion at that stage, called NWA Ireland. So I'd Irish Whip Wrestling, only promotion in Ireland at the time. He came along to set up NWA Ireland. So obviously with himself, a couple of people he trained was Becky Lynch. Her brother was a wrestler, actually. He was quite good, but he left wrestling, and he's a successful sculptor now, actually, an artist. But yeah, so we didn't really get on at the time. Rival promotions like in wrestling. But when you came on that night and had your match, they came to support you. So yeah, they actually came out, bought the tickets and sat there and cheered you in your match.
And that
was quite cool, actually.
And that's what we, even as a group, that's what we should be doing. There's lots of lessons that I've learned, right, over time, and yeah, wrestling is very political and stuff like that. I regret some of the ways I acted. I should have been more friendly. I should have been more helpful. And that's a message to anybody out there: be kind. There's no real need, because that person could be the guy that helps you later on down the road, right? So just be good to people.